There is a clay tablet in the British Museum that is smaller than a piece of paper. It fits in one hand. It is approximately 12 centimeters across and 8 centimeters tall, and it contains the oldest surviving attempt by any human civilization to draw the entire world. I want to tell you something about this tablet that I have not seen anyone talk about seriously. And I want to start not with the tablet itself, but with a question that the tablet raises and that I have been sitting with for a long time. The question is this: if you were a Babylonian scribe in 600 BCE, and you were tasked with drawing a map of the entire world, what would you include? You would include what you knew. Babylon in the center, obviously. The Euphrates River, Assyria, Elam, the regions your traders traveled through, the cities your armies had fought, the lands your kings had conquered or corresponded with. You would draw what you had evidence for. What you would almost certainly not include is a detailed description of 8 separate regions beyond the edge of the known world, each one located at a specific distance from the others, each one described with enough physical detail that the text accompanying the map specifies the conditions you would encounter if you somehow managed to reach them. But that is exactly what this tablet contains. And the more carefully I read the descriptions of those 8 regions, the less satisfied I am with the explanations that have been offered for what they are. The tablet is called the Babylonian World Map, sometimes referred to as the Imago Mundi. It was excavated in the 19th century at Sepal, a city on the Euphrates River about 60 kilometers north of Babylon, and acquired by the British Museum in 1882. The first translation of its cuneiform text was published in 1899. It has been in the museum ever since, studied by Assyriologists, referenced in textbooks on ancient cartography, and generally treated as a fascinating but ultimately limited document, a window into how the Babylonians understood their world, rather than a source of information about the actual world beyond it. I accepted that framing for a long time. Then I started reading the text more carefully, and I kept running into details that did not fit as neatly into that framing as the academic literature suggested they should. The map itself is structured simply. Babylon sits at the center. The Euphrates flows through it. Several known cities and regions are labeled around Babylon. Surrounding the entire central landmass is a circular body of water labeled the Salt Sea, or, in some translations, the Bitter River. And surrounding the Salt Sea, extending outward from it like points on a compass, are 8 triangular shapes. The map labels them as Nagu, a word that translates as regions or islands. 8 of them, each one positioned at a specific point around the outer edge of the ocean, each one accompanied by text. That text is where things get interesting. The reverse side of the tablet is covered in cuneiform describing the 8 islands in detail. The tablet is damaged, so not all of the descriptions survive, but the ones that do are specific in ways I was not expecting. Each island is described in terms of its physical conditions. One island is described as a place where the sun cannot be seen, where the sky is always dark. Another is described as where a great horned bull lives. And the description of the bull is specific enough that scholars have argued about whether it refers to a real animal or a mythological one. A third island is described as where the sunrise happens, which, depending on how you interpret the cosmological framework, either means it is located to the east or means something more complex about its relationship to the moon or the sun. What I keep returning to is not what the islands are described as containing, but the fact that they are described at all. This is a map of the world. It is, according to the text on the tablet itself, intended to depict the entire contents of the known world. And the people who made it chose to include not just the known regions, but 8 specific regions beyond the edge of the known world, each positioned at a precise location, each accompanied by a description of what you would find there. Where did that information come from? The mainstream answer is that the islands are mythological. They represent the Babylonian cosmological framework, the idea that beyond the known world lay a series of regions connecting the earthly ocean to the heavenly ocean above. The strange beasts and impossible conditions described on the islands are religious imagery, not geographical observation. The whole thing is a religious document dressed up as a map. That answer makes sense as far as it goes. The Babylonians absolutely had a rich cosmological tradition, and the islands fit within that tradition in various ways. I am not disputing that. What I find difficult to resolve is a separate question, which is this. If the islands are purely mythological, why are they described with distances? Why does the text specify not just that the islands exist, but how far apart they are from each other, measured in a unit called beru, which corresponds to a specific walking distance? You do not attach distance measurements to purely symbolic content. Distance measurements are practical information. They exist because someone wanted to know how far it was from one place to another. There is something else about this map that I have not seen get the attention it deserves. The map deliberately omits Egypt and Persia. At the time this map was made, Egypt and Persia were the two most powerful civilizations in the region. The Babylonians knew about them. They had extensive diplomatic and trade contact with both. Egyptian and Persian geography would have been well within the knowledge of any educated Babylonian scribe of this period, and yet neither appears on the map. This is not an oversight. It is a choice. Someone decided that Egypt and Persia were not worth including on a document intended to depict the entire world, but that 8 unnamed islands beyond the edge of the known ocean were worth including with specific descriptions and distance measurements. I have thought about that choice a lot. The most obvious explanation is that the map is organized around a different principle than geographical completeness. It is not trying to show everything that exists. It is trying to show something specific about the structure of the world as the Babylonians understood it, and Egypt and Persia simply did not fit within that structure, while the 8 islands did. But that explanation raises its own question. What is the structure that requires 8 precisely positioned regions beyond the ocean, each described in enough detail that conditions, distances, and inhabitants are specified, while simultaneously excluding the 2 largest empires in the known world? I want to be honest about what I do and do not know here. I am not an Assyriologist. I cannot read cuneiform. I am working from translations, and translations of ancient texts introduce uncertainty at every step. The tablet itself is damaged, which means the surviving descriptions of the islands are incomplete, which means we are working with partial information about what the original document contained. I acknowledge all of that. What I cannot do is make the details go away by acknowledging the uncertainty. The distances are in the text. The physical descriptions are in the text. The deliberate exclusion of Egypt and Persia is in the map. These are not interpretive choices I am making. They are features of the document that have been there since 1882, and that the academic literature has generally explained, rather than examined. There is one more thing I want to mention, which is that the tablet itself tells us it is a copy. An inscription on the map indicates that the document is a copy of an earlier map. The original, according to the inscription, could not have been created earlier than the 9th century BCE based on the locations it references. But the tablet we have now dates to the 6th century BCE, which means there is a gap of at least 2 or 3 centuries between the original and the copy we are looking at. Someone in 6th century Babylon thought this map was worth copying. They had access to maps of Egypt and Persia and of the entire known world of their time, and they chose to copy a document that showed 8 islands beyond the edge of the ocean, rather than a document that showed the world as it actually existed in their time. That choice was made deliberately by someone who understood what the map contained and considered it worth preserving. What were they preserving? The islands are described in a sequence that moves clockwise around the outer edge of the ocean. The first island is in the southeast. The second is in the southwest. The progression continues around the circle, each island at a specific interval from the last, until you have gone all the way around the outer rim of the known world. The complete circuit, if you followed it from island to island using the distances specified in the text, would take you all the way around the edge of the world and back to where you started. That is not how you describe mythology. That is how you describe a route. I am not saying the 8 islands are real places that correspond to actual geographic locations. I do not have evidence for that, and I am not making that claim. What I am saying is that the document describes them with the kind of specificity, distances, directions, physical conditions, sequence, that you use when you want someone to be able to find something, not when you want to convey a symbolic idea about the nature of the cosmos. The tablet is in the British Museum. Room 55, if you want to go and look at it yourself. It is small enough that you might walk past it without stopping, which based on my reading of the academic literature is exactly what most people have been doing, with the questions it raises for the last 140 years. The 8 islands are in the text. The distances are in the text. The route around the outer rim of the world is in the text. What the Babylonians who made this document knew, and where that knowledge came from, and why they considered it important enough to copy and preserve across centuries while leaving out the 2 most powerful empires in their world. Those questions are still open. I have been sitting with them for a while now. I do not think I am the only one who should be.